Bombshell alert in Minnesota, Viking Nation. The storm starts right now with a revelation no one saw coming. Because what just went down in the last 72 hours is about to shake the very foundation of this franchise. A superstar receiver just admitted something that will haunt him all season long. A young pass rusher is being crucified by the fan base. While the coaching staff sees something nobody else does, a head coach is doubling down on his vision even as the critics sharpen their knives. A rookie quarterback is preparing for a comeback that could redefine his entire career. And a veteran signal caller is being thrown back into the fire one more time, knowing full well that his time is running out. These 5 stories aren't just headlines. They're the crossroads where this season will either explode into glory or crumble into dust. Each revelation cuts deeper than the last, and by the time we're done here, you'll understand exactly why this Thursday night game against the Chargers isn't just another matchup. It's a referendum on everything this team believes in. So if you bleed purple and gold more than you hate the Packers, buckle up, because we're diving headfirst into the chaos, the drama, and the raw truth that defines Viking Nation right now. This is where legends are made or broken, and trust me, what comes next will leave you speechless. Let's start with the moment that had every Vikings fan screaming at their TV screen. A moment that could have flipped the script against the Philadelphia Eagles. A moment that's still replaying in nightmares across Minnesota. But here's the twist nobody expected. The man at the center of it all isn't blaming anyone but himself. That's right, we're talking about none other than Justin Jefferson, the most electrifying wide receiver in the NFL. The guy who makes defensive coordinators lose sleep. The player who single-handedly strikes fear into the hearts of every secondary in this league. And what did he just admit after that gut-wrenching 28-22 loss to Philly? He looked into the camera, took full responsibility, and said 5 words that prove why he's not just a star, but a leader. That's more on me. Let me paint the picture for you. It's a critical moment in the end zone. Carson Wentz drops back, sees his number 1 target in single coverage, and fires a pass that should have been 6 points on the board. Jefferson's hands are there, the ball's coming in hot, and for a split second, every Vikings fan thought we were about to witness another legendary J.J. moment. But then, out of nowhere, Eagles rookie cornerback Cooper DeJean, a kid who's barely played a handful of NFL games, times it perfectly, reaches in, and rips that football right out of Jefferson's grasp. Touchdown denied, momentum crushed, red zone failure number, well, let's not even count anymore because it's getting embarrassing. Minnesota settled for a field goal instead of punching it in, and that difference loomed large as the Eagles ran away with the victory. Now, most receivers would have blamed the cornerback, blamed the timing, blamed the play call, blamed the sun in their eyes, anything to deflect. But not Justin Jefferson. In the post-game interview, he didn't hesitate. All respect to him, Jefferson said about DeJean, but that's a catch any day of the week. I just gotta be more focused on pulling the ball into me instead of just laying it out there and letting him knock it out of my hand. I would say that's more on me than on him. That's accountability. That's maturity. That's the mentality of a player who understands that being great isn't just about the highlight reels. It's about owning your mistakes when the stakes are highest. But let's be real for a second. This isn't just about one-drop touchdown. This is about a Vikings offense that's been bleeding opportunities in the red zone all season long. They went 1 for 6 inside the 20-yard line against Philly .1 for .6. That's not just bad luck. That's a systemic problem that's costing this team wins. Jefferson finished the game with 5 catches for 79 yards, which sounds solid on paper. But when your best player is admitting he left points on the field, you know there's a deeper issue. It's not like Jefferson is having a down year. Far from it. He just passed Adrian Hopkins for the 2nd most receptions in a player's first 6 seasons in NFL history, trailing only Jarvis Landry. But stats don't mean a damn thing if you can't convert when it matters most. So here's the question Viking Nation needs to ask. Is this offense capable of fixing its red zone woes before the season slips away? Can Carson Wentz, who threw for 313 yards but 0 touchdowns and interceptions against the Eagles, find a rhythm that actually translates into points? And can Justin Jefferson, who's already one of the best in the game, elevate even further and become the closer this team desperately needs in crunch time? Because right now, at 3-3, the margin for error is razor thin. The NFC North is a bloodbath. The Lions are running away with it at 5-2. and every single game from here on out is a must-win. Jefferson knows it, the coaching staff knows it, and every fan sitting at home knows it. But hold on, as shocking as that is, the next update cuts even deeper, and it's about a player who's being torn apart by the fan base while the head coach continues to stand by his side no matter what. If you've been anywhere near Vikings social media in the past few weeks, you've seen the firestorm surrounding one name, Dallas Turner, the 17th overall pick in the draft, the edge rusher who was supposed to be the next great pass rushing weapon from Minnesota, the guy who cost the Vikings to separate trades to move up and select. And yet, if you listen to the loudest voices in Viking Nation, you think he's already a bust, a wasted pick, a cautionary tale about overhyping college talent. But here's the thing nobody wants to admit: the people inside the building, the ones who watch every snap, every practice rep, every film session, they see something completely different. And the man leading that charge, head coach Kevin O'Connell, who just delivered yet another glowing endorsement of Turner that should make every doubter pump the brakes. Let's set the record straight on what actually happened in the draft. General Manager Kwesi Adolfo-Mensah made those trades with the primary goal of securing future quarterback capital, not specifically to grab Turner. But when the board fell the way it did, and Turner was sitting there at 17, the Vikings pounced. They saw a versatile, athletic edge rusher who could do more than just pin his ears back and rush the passer. They saw someone who could fit into defensive coordinator Brian Flores' chaotic, multiple front scheme that demands versatility above all else. And that's exactly what Turner has been delivering, even if it doesn't show up on the stat sheet in the way casual fans expect. Here's what O'Connell said this week when asked about Turner stepping into a bigger role. With Andrew Van Ginkel sidelined due to injury, he's had a lot of snaps and some impactful plays. We're asking a lot of him, especially in our emphasis on trying to stop the run. Last week, I thought Dallas was really good at setting edges against a very physical offensive line, a tough offensive line to go against, especially at the tackle positions, and trying to contain Jalen Hurts as much as possible. Maybe that limited some of the creativity of some of the rushers, but the pressure, the finishing, the using of his gifts to rush the passer are all being utilized and emphasized, but also growing every single day. So I think Dallas is going to continue to get better and better alongside Jonathan Greenard, and I'm excited to see what he can do this week. I'm excited to watch him play. Now, let's break down what O'Connell is really saying here, because it's crucial. Setting edges, containing mobile quarterbacks, playing disciplined gap sound defense. These are the unsexy, thankless jobs that don't get highlights on SportsCenter, but are absolutely essential to winning football games. Turner isn't being asked to be a pure pass rusher who gets 10 sacks a year and calls it a day. He's being asked to be a chess piece in Flores' defense, a player who can drop into coverage, spy a quarterback, hold the edge against the run, and yes, still provide pressure when the situation calls for it. That's a massive ask for a rookie, especially one who's adjusting to the speed and physicality of the NFL. And here's the part that should excite Viking Nation. Turner is succeeding at all of it. Against the Eagles, he went up against Lane Johnson, arguably the best right tackle in NFL history, and held his own. He didn't get dominated. He didn't get embarrassed. He played disciplined, physical football and did exactly what the coaching staff asked of him. But because he didn't record a sack or a tackle for loss, the online discourse decided he's a disappointment. That's not just unfair, it's flat out wrong. There's a clip from last season that perfectly encapsulates what makes Turner valuable. He drops into coverage, reads the quarterback's eyes, mirrors the receiver, and makes a play on the ball that forces an incompletion. That kind of versatility is rare, especially for a guy listed as an edge rusher. It's the kind of thing that makes Flores salivate, because it opens up an entirely new playbook of exotic blitzes, simulated pressures, and coverage disguises that keep offenses guessing. You can't run those schemes with a one-dimensional pass rusher. You need a player who can do everything, and that's exactly what Turner is becoming. So here's the real question. Is Viking Nation patient enough to let Turner develop into the player he's supposed to be? Or are we going to rush to judgment after less than a full season? Are we going to trust the coaching staff that sees him every single day? Or are we going to let Twitter hot takes dictate the narrative? Because here's the truth. Dallas Turner is going to be a damn good football player. And the people who are writing him off right now are going to look foolish in a year or to when he's making Pro Bowls. And just when fans thought it couldn't get crazier, here comes the next bombshell. A head coach who refuses to bend, refuses to break, and refuses to let external noise dictate how he runs this football team. Let me tell you something about Kevin O'Connell that not enough people appreciate. This man is stubborn as hell, and in the best possible way. He's not the type of coach who's going to flip-flop based on whatever the loudest voices on talk radio are screaming about. He's not going to panic after a loss. He's not going to abandon his philosophy just because the results aren't immediate. No. Kevin O'Connell is the kind of leader who has a vision, believes in that vision with every fiber of his being, and will stick to it even when the entire world is telling him he's wrong. And right now, with the Vikings sitting at 3-3 and facing a brutal stretch of games, that stubborn resolve is being tested like never before. Let's look at the evidence. Start with Christian Darrisaw, the franchise left tackle who's been working his way back from injury. O'Connell and the training staff laid out a specific plan for Darrisaw's return, a gradual, methodical process designed to ensure he's fully healthy and ready to contribute at the highest level. And you know what O'Connell did. He stuck to that plan even when the offensive line was getting decimated by injuries. In Week 5, a game where Minnesota desperately needed all hands on deck up front, Darrisaw was inactive, not because he couldn't play, but because the plan said it wasn't time yet. That's discipline. That's long-term thinking over short-term desperation. And guess what? Darrisaw came back healthy, played well, and is now a cornerstone of that offensive line. Then there's the Jordan Addison situation. The talented second-year receiver made a mistake, missed part of the week's preparation, and put himself in a position where he wasn't fully ready for game day. Most coaches would have given him a slap on the wrist, maybe a stern talking to, and then thrown him out there anyway because they needed his talent against the Browns. Not O'Connell. He benched Addison for the first quarter, sent a crystal clear message that accountability matters, and reinforced the standard that everyone, star players included, has to meet. That's leadership. That's culture building. That's the kind of decision that might cost you in the short term, but pays massive dividends down the road. And now, the biggest test of all, J.J. McCarthy versus Carson Wentz. Viking Nation is screaming for McCarthy to get back on the field. The frustration with Wentz is palpable after his performance against the Eagles. 313 yards sounds nice until you realize he threw 0 touchdowns and 2 interceptions, one of which was a pick six that swung the momentum completely. Fans are desperate to see what McCarthy can do to inject some life and hope into this offense, to finally get a glimpse of the future. But O'Connell isn't budging. Not yet. Here's what he said this week when asked about McCarthy's status. For Thursday night against the Chargers, JJ, the medical staff, myself, we're all kind of excited about where he's at right now and the progress he's making, but he's just not there yet. If it were a Sunday game, maybe the story would be a little different. Translation, we have a plan, we're sticking to the plan, and I don't care how loud the noise gets from the outside. McCarthy's long-term health and development are more important than rushing him back for one game. That's the kind of decision that takes guts, especially when you're 3-3 and every game feels like a must-win. But here's the thing, O'Connell has earned the benefit of the doubt. Look at his track record. When he says a player isn't ready, he's usually right. When he lays out a plan, he follows through on it. When he makes a tough decision, it's because he genuinely believes it's what's best for the team, not because he's trying to make a statement or play politics. This is a coach who's walking a tightrope right now, trying to balance short-term competitiveness with long-term sustainability. And he's doing it with the kind of conviction that should make Viking Nation feel confident, not frustrated. Think about it. Would you rather have a coach who panics, who changes his mind every week, who bends to public pressure and makes knee-jerk decisions? Or would you rather have a coach who stays the course, trusts his process, and makes the hard calls even when they're unpopular? Because that's what you've got in Kevin O'Connell. He's not going to budge. He's not going to waver. He's going to stick to his guns, for better or worse. And when this team finally breaks through, and they will break through, it'll be because he refused to compromise on his vision. So here's the question. Does Viking Nation trust Kevin O'Connell enough to let him cook? Or are we going to lose our minds every time a decision doesn't immediately pan out? Because I'll tell you right now, this coach isn't changing. He's dug in, he's committed. And if you're a true Vikings fan, you should be damn glad you got someone with that kind of backbone leading this team. But trust me, the story only gets darker from here, because the next chapter is about a young quarterback who's about to inherit a mess. and is preparing to face it with a brand new mentality that could define his entire career. Here's the reality that nobody wants to say out loud. J.J. McCarthy is returning to a completely different Minnesota Vikings team than the one he left. When he took the field in Week 1, there was electricity in the air, hope radiating from every corner of Viking Nation, a belief that this kid, the 10th overall pick, the Michigan champion, the Golden Boy, was going to lead this franchise into a new era. But then the ankle injury happened. Carson Wentz stepped in. The wins didn't come consistently. The offensive struggles piled up, and now McCarthy's coming back to a team that's 3-3, sitting on the edge of playoff relevance, with the pressure dial cranked all the way up. And here's the twist. McCarthy can't afford to play like a first-round pick anymore. He has to play like a third-line grinder in hockey, scrappy, relentless, willing to do the dirty work, and absolutely obsessed with winning even if it's ugly. Let me explain what that means, because it's crucial to understanding what McCarthy's role needs to be moving forward. Forget the flash. Forget the highlight reel throws. Forget trying to be Patrick Mahomes or Josh Allen right out of the gate. What this Vikings team needs right now is a quarterback who protects the football like his life depends on it, who avoids negative plays at all costs, who takes what the defense gives him and doesn't force anything, who understands that a 4-yard completion on 3rd and 3 is worth more than a 30-yard bomb that gets picked off. McCarthy needs to embrace the mentality of a winner, not a stat stuffer. He needs to be the guy who keeps drives alive, who doesn't turn the ball over, who gives Justin Jefferson and Jordan Addison and T.J. Hawkinson chances to make plays, and who lets the defense, which has been playing well enough to keep Minnesota in games, do its job. This is the mandate. Be a game manager in the best sense of the term. Don't lose the game with a boneheaded decision. Don't take unnecessary sacks. Don't throw into tight windows when the check down is sitting there wide open. Play smart, play tough, and play to win. Because here's the truth. McCarthy doesn't need to be elite right now. He just needs to be better than Carson Wentz, and that bar isn't exactly high at the moment. Wentz has been inconsistent at best, turnover prone at worst, and his inability to score touchdowns in the red zone has been a glaring issue. If McCarthy can come in and simply protect the football while moving the chains, that's a massive upgrade. And here's where it gets really interesting. McCarthy is on track to be active as the 3rd emergency quarterback for Week 8 against the Chargers. That's progress. That's a sign that he's close. O'Connell confirmed it earlier this week, saying McCarthy is making great strides, but isn't quite ready to start yet. But the writing is on the wall. Week 9 against the Detroit Lions is likely when we'll see McCarthy back under center. And what a baptism by fire that's going to be. The Lions are 5-2, rolling through opponents, and playing at Ford Field is never easy. If McCarthy can go into that hostile environment and lead the Vikings to a victory, even a scrappy, low-scoring, defense-fueled win, it'll do wonders for his confidence and this team's belief in him. But let's be realistic about what success looks like for McCarthy in the second half of this season. He doesn't need to throw for 300 yards a game. He doesn't need to rack up Pro Bowl numbers. What he needs to do is win games. If he can go 5-3 or 6 and to down the stretch, get Minnesota to 9 or 10 wins and sneak into the playoffs as a wild card team, that's a massive accomplishment given the circumstances. And here's the kicker. If McCarthy can get this team into the postseason and then win a playoff game, maybe even 2, nobody's going to care that he didn't put up gaudy stats during the regular season. All anyone will remember is that he stepped up when it mattered most, overcame adversity, and delivered when the stakes were highest. That's the kind of quarterback story that becomes legendary in this league. Think about it. A rookie coming back from injury, inheriting a flawed roster, battling through a tough schedule, and willing his team into January football. That's the stuff of Viking lore. That's the narrative that could cement McCarthy as the franchise quarterback for the next decade. But it all starts with one simple mandate. Win games, protect the football, and be the toughest son of a bitch on the field every single Sunday. So here's the question Viking Nation needs to ask itself. Are we ready to embrace this version of J.J. McCarthy? Or are we going to demand perfection from a 22-year-old kid who's been dealt a tough hand? Because if we're patient, if we support him, and if we let him grow into this role, the payoff could be enormous. But if we turn on him at the first sign of struggle, if we expect him to be a savior right out of the gate, we're setting him up for failure. The choice is ours. And listen closely. The next 72 hours might be the most decisive in this franchise's history, because the man who's starting on Thursday night knows his time is running out, and he's got one last chance to prove he belongs. Stay tuned. And now we come to the final piece of this twisted puzzle, the one that ties everything together and sets the stage for Thursday Night Football. Carson Wentz is getting one more shot. That's right. Despite all the struggles, despite the turnovers, despite the lack of touchdowns, despite the growing calls for J.J. McCarthy to take over, Kevin O'Connell is sticking with Wentz for Week 8 against the Los Angeles Chargers. And you know what? There's a cold, hard logic to it that makes perfect sense even if it's frustrating as hell for fans to accept. Let's review Wentz's body of work so far. He's started for games, gone 2-2, thrown for 1,072 yards, 5 touchdowns, and for interceptions. Against the Eagles last week, he put up 313 yards but couldn't find the end zone and gifted Philly to picks, including a brutal pick six that shifted the entire momentum of the game. His completion percentage was 61.9, the lowest of the season, and the offense managed just one red zone touchdown in 6 attempts. Those are not the numbers of a quarterback who's commanding the offense. Those are the numbers of a guy who's barely keeping his head above water. But here's the thing, Wentz is exactly what he's supposed to be in this situation, a veteran stopgap who's eating these tough weeks so that McCarthy doesn't have to. O'Connell knows McCarthy is the future. He knows Wentz is limited, but he also knows that rushing McCarthy back before he's fully healthy and fully prepared could do more harm than good. So Wentz gets the short week, the Thursday night grind, the West Coast trip to face Justin Herbert and the Chargers, and if he struggles again, so be it. Better to have Wentz take those lumps than to throw McCarthy into a less than ideal situation and risk stunning his development. And let's talk about the Chargers for a second, because this is not an easy matchup. Los Angeles started the season 3-0, sweeping through their AFC West opponents and looking like a legitimate playoff contender. But then the wheels came off. They've lost 3 of their last 4, including a brutal 38-24 beatdown at the hands of the Colts last week. Justin Herbert threw for 420 yards, which sounds great until you realize they still lost by 2 touchdowns. The defense has been gashed. The offensive line has been banged up with left tackle Joe Alt missing the last 3 games, and the Chargers are suddenly looking vulnerable. For the Vikings, this is the kind of game they absolutely have to win. The Chargers are reeling, playing at home on a short week, and if Minnesota can't take advantage of that, they might as well kiss their playoff hopes goodbye. But here's the catch. The Vikings are dealing with their own injury issues. Fullback C.J. Ham didn't practice on Tuesday with a hand injury. Right tackle Brian O'Neill is nursing a knee issue, and running back Aaron Jones is just now opening his 21-day practice window after missing for games with a hamstring injury. The offensive line has been a patchwork mess all season, and asking Wentz to operate behind that unit against the defense that's going to be desperate to get back on track is a tall order. So what does Wentz need to do on Thursday night to give the Vikings a chance? First, he cannot turn the ball over. Period. No pick sixes, no fumbles, no reckless throws into coverage. Second, he has to find a way to score touchdowns in the red zone. Field goals aren't going to cut it anymore. This offense has to start punching it in when they get inside the 20. Third, he needs to get the ball to Jefferson, Addison, and Hockenson in space and let them do the heavy lifting. Wentz doesn't need to be a hero. He just needs to be competent, manage the game, protect the football, and give the defense a chance to win it. If he can do that, Minnesota has a real shot. If he can't, it's going to be another long, frustrating night for Viking Nation. But here's the bigger picture that every Vikings fan needs to understand. This season is a marathon, not a sprint. Yes, 3-3 is frustrating. Yes, the red zone struggles are maddening. Yes, watching Wentz struggle while McCarthy sits on the sideline is painful. But this is all part of the plan. O'Connell is building something sustainable, something that's going to compete not just this year, but for the next decade. He's protecting McCarthy's long-term health. He's holding players accountable. He's sticking to his principles even when it's unpopular. And if that means suffering through a few more weeks of Carson Wentz, so be it. The payoff is coming, and when it does, all of this pain will have been worth it. So here's my challenge to every member of Viking Nation. Don't give up. Don't turn on this team. Don't lose faith in Kevin O'Connell or J.J. McCarthy or this roster just because the first half of the season has been rocky. This team is still in the playoff hunt. they're still capable of making noise if they get hot at the right time. And when McCarthy finally does take over, when he leads this offense to consistent scoring, when he proves he's the franchise quarterback we all believe he can be, you're going to look back on these weeks and realize they were necessary growing pains. Thursday night against the Chargers is just one game, but it's also a microcosm of this entire season. A team fighting through adversity, a coach refusing to compromise his vision, a veteran trying to hold things together, and a rookie waiting in the wings to seize his moment. The Vikings are 3-3, but they're not out of it. Not by a long shot. If you believe in this team, if you bleed purple and gold, if you want to see the Packers suffer and the Lions fall, then now is the time to show up, show out, and prove that Viking Nation doesn't quit. Smash that like button if you're ready to ride with this team through the storm. Drop a comment telling me which of these 5 stories shocked you the most. And hit that subscribe button, because this season is about to get a whole lot more interesting. And you don't want to miss a single second of what's coming next. Because if you think this week felt like an earthquake, what's coming next could be the aftershock that topples the whole season. Think this was wow? Just wait until the rivals make their counter move, because that war is only beginning. And listen closely. The next 72 hours might be the most decisive in this franchise's history. Stay tuned. Viking Nation, the storm is just getting started. Skol.